Hey guys, for those of you who are new to Top Dog Tips, my name is Samantha. For those of you familiar with my videos, you know that normally when we are in my kitchen, I'm here sharing recipes with you guys for homemade dog food and homemade dog treats. Today, I actually want to talk to you about how to make homemade dog food. This is a question that I get asked very often from readers and viewers, and also from just family members and friends and people that I meet in my day-to-day life. So it's a question that I definitely want to address for you guys, but the one thing that I want to make very clear is that you're not going to find a video online or a written article that's going to tell you exactly how to make homemade dog food for your dog. You can learn a lot, and there's a lot of research to be done, and you need to watch videos like this one and do some research before you can delve into the world of homemade dog food. But you're not going to just find a video that says how to make homemade dog food for a 60-pound boxer. That's one of our dogs is a 60-pound boxer. We also have a chocolate lab who weighs about 70 pounds, and then we have a little beagle mix. All of them need different things nutritionally, and I have to cater my homemade dog food to their individual needs. And that's going to be the same for you. Every boxer does not need the same diet. Every chocolate lab does not need the same diet. Every large breed doesn't need the same diet. Dogs with skin conditions or diabetic dogs that need to be gluten-free or have some types of food sensitivities, they don't all need to eat the same diet. You can't just lump those dogs into one group and feed them the same food. Each dog is different. Each dog is an individual. Just like humans, the food that I eat isn't necessarily going to be enough food or isn't necessarily going to be the right type of diet for somebody else that might be my same height and my same size and might also be a female. So you need to take that into consideration. Every dog should have his own diet, and it's your job as a pet parent to figure out what that is. And of course, now, like I said, you're not going to be able to watch a video, you're not going to be able to research it online, but what you need to do is work with a trained professional, and that's going to be either your veterinarian or a canine nutritionist. When you go in for this meeting for a consultation, be very upfront about it. When you call to make the appointment and say, listen, I'm thinking about switching my dog to homemade food, or we're adopting a dog and we want to talk about a homemade diet, and you're going to need some facts on the dog. So if you haven't adopted the dog yet, you're going to need a lot of information, and know that going into this initial consultation that you're going to need a lot of information on the dog, including obviously his weight and his size, his breed. You're going to need to know the diet that he's currently eating. So the transition can be made in the way that's the healthiest for the animal. If you own the dog already and you've been feeding, let's say just for example, you've been feeding dry kibble. If you've been feeding that diet and you know that, and you can even say a brand or bring in the information from the packaging with the ingredients and the nutritional contents and things like that, that's going to make things a lot easier. It's definitely not necessary. A lot of getting the right homemade dog food diet down is some trial and error. You feed certain food for a little while, or a certain type of recipe for a little while, and you see how it goes. Is your dog gaining weight? Is he losing weight? Is he more active, less active? Things like that. So you really need to work with a trained professional, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something that you're going to have some ideas and create a diet for your dog and see how it works over a short period of time, and then you're going to reevaluate that. Is it working? Is it not working? Should we do something differently? And this person, whether it be a vet or a canine nutritionist, is going to be able to help you through this process and notice these changes in your dogs. Are they positive? Are they negative? What's working? What's not working? Should we, for example, increase the protein in the food, decrease the protein in the food, increase the fat content, decrease the fat content, things like that? They'll be able to help you with that. I'm not a trained canine nutritionist or a veterinarian. I do feed my dogs a homemade diet, but it's something that we've worked with over time. Just as a little side note, in case you're wondering, I got into making homemade dog food because we have a boxer, like I said, our 60-pound boxer. Her name is Chloe. She was diagnosed about 2 years ago with boxer cardiomyopathy, and it's a condition where her heart beats much faster than it should, about 4 times faster than it should actually. So without daily medication periodically throughout the day, she takes 5 pills a day to control it, her heart would beat so fast that it would shut down. So she now takes 5 pills a day. We wanted to give her a heart healthy diet to help as much as we can without the medication. She absolutely needs the medication, and it's not something that, changing her diet is going to get rid of those medications, but we want to do as much as we can to help her in any way that we can to increase her lifespan as much as possible. So we wanted to switch to a heart healthy diet, and at that time we were going through trying to get Chloe's medication in the right dosage over the right periods of time. So we figured, why not do the diet at the same time? We'll work through the diet and try and figure that out at the time. We had another boxer, and so we worked a diet out for both of them. Since then, we've brought our chocolate lab Sadie and our little beagle Molly into our family, and we got both of them from puppies. So we started out right from the beginning feeding them homemade food, but as they grow, their diet needs to evolve. As they, when they're in the puppy stage, they need a higher protein content because their body, their muscles are growing, and they need that protein to develop properly. And then as they stop growing and get a little bit older, and maybe some of that puppy energy kind of settles down, you need to tweak their diet to meet those needs. And with homemade dog food, you can do that very easily if you're working with a veterinary team or a canine nutritionist that can help you with that. Working with a trained professional isn't the only thing that you're going to need to do. Like I said, there's still research to be done on your part, and of course your professional help can assist you in a lot of this, but you're going to want to do a lot of the research on your own as well. And the first thing that you're going to want to consider, of course, is the ingredients that you're using. Now, homemade dog food gives a very unique ability to control the ingredients that are in your pet's food. There are higher end dog foods that have limited ingredients. They may only have 5 or 6 ingredients, and that's great, but that food is still made somewhere else in a factory somewhere, and things are still out of your control, and you don't know how those ingredients are being processed and how they're being cared for before they're turned into, say, for example, dry kibble. Now, should you be able to take the company's word for it? Absolutely. But I think as pet owners, we also need to not be naive. We need to realize that there have been many, many recalls and many issues in the pet industry with dog food and dog treats being either contaminated with bacteria, or we've had some companies that have maybe tweaked the ingredient list on their packaging to be a little bit deceptive, I guess, for buyers. So we can't, even though you buy a higher end food, it costs more money, it says it's limited ingredients, all of this stuff. You do some research on the company, they're a very reputable brand. Certainly you should be able to put some faith in that, and feel confident in your purchase. And I'm definitely not saying that every company out there is doing it, but there's always going to be that little part, that just 2% in the back of your mind that doesn't know 100% where those ingredients come from and how they're processed and things like that. So that's something to keep in mind. Homemade food gives you that advantage. We live in Maine, it's hunting season right now. My husband is a hunter, so we have wild game birds, and we have venison, and we have moose meat, bear meat, things like that that can be used in dog food that my husband gets out of the woods in our local area. We are sure that that is free-range meat, that it's not full of hormones and antibiotics and things like that. You can buy your meat or raise your own meat. If there's a local place that that raises birds or any kind of game meat or any kind of large animals like cows or bison or anything like that, and they don't use hormones or antibiotics or things like that when they raise their animals. You can buy meat from those places. You can raise your own meat if you're in an area that allows that. Say you live in the middle of New York City and that's not possible, find a small butcher shop, find somewhere local that sells meat that's fresh and that's not full of the preservatives, the hormones, the antibiotics and things like that you find in most of the meat that you would buy at your regular grocery store. So you can control the quality of the protein source and you can control the quality of the other ingredients. The flours that you buy, if you're buying things like flaxseed or cinnamon, buying all natural, buying organic products. You can make sure that you're buying products that are fresh. If you're adding fruits and vegetables, which you should be in homemade food, you can be sure that you're either growing it yourself. Even if you live in an urban area where you don't have access to a large piece of property, you could still grow, your own greens, your own kale, your own say green beans and peas, things like that in window boxes or just a small raised bed. So you can grow it yourself or you can find it at local markets. You can find it at farmers markets, places like that where it's been grown locally, where it's fresh, where it's organic, it hasn't been sprayed with pesticides, things like that. And you want to find those products because you want to make your dog food as healthy as possible. If you're feeding your dog fruits and vegetables that are covered in pesticides, if you're feeding them meat that's come from a farm where they just pump the animals full of hormones to grow bigger and faster and antibiotics and things like that to take care of any kind of infections, your dog he's ingesting all of that stuff, all those pesticides, all those chemicals are going into his system. So it's something that you want to take very seriously. When you're working with a professional, they'll certainly mention that to you, but it's something that takes a lot of research. There are fruits and vegetables that are great for dogs that are superfoods, and there are fruits and vegetables that are not good for dogs. Onions are something that are not good for dogs. Apples are great for dogs, but not the core. The seeds actually have a chemical in them that's toxic to dogs. So not a chemical, but an ingredient in them that is toxic to dogs. So you want to be sure that you do your research, and if you have any questions on the ingredients, reach out to those professionals. That's why you're working with them. That's why they're there, is to talk to you about that stuff. So do your research, make lists if you need to, write things down, what's good, what's bad, and really focus on buying the best ingredients that you can afford. Of course, if you can't afford top of the line ingredients, that's understandable, but buy the best quality that you can afford. So once you get past, you're going to be working with a professional to figure out what your dog needs, and they're not going to just give you, and they may give you recipes, but they're not just going to give you a book of recipes here, these will all work for your dog. They're going to tell you that your dog needs this percentage of protein in his diet, this percentage of certain vitamins and minerals and things like that. Say, for example, you have an older dog who has some hip and joint problems. They might suggest a glucosamine chondroitin supplement, some kind of a joint supplement for your pet. If you have a dog that has a skin condition, they may say, add some fish oil to your recipes. Coconut oil is a really big thing that a lot of people recommend adding. So they're going to tell you certain percentages of things that you need to have in your recipes, and maybe extra supplements or anything like that your individual dog needs. And once you get that basis, and then you're looking at the ingredients, you do your research and you figure out which types of ingredients you want to use. You may need to use special ingredients because your dog may have, say, some sensitivities. Maybe he's sensitive to the more common proteins like beef and chicken. So you might have to reach out and buy some venison, some bison, some other less common proteins. Your dog may need a gluten-free or a wheat-free diet. That's very common. Wheat allergies are very common in dogs. So you may need that. You may need, say for example, if your dog is diabetic or like our boxer Chloe, you may need a heart-healthy diet. So the professional will work with you on that aspect. Then you're going to look at the ingredients and decide, which ingredients you want to incorporate, or at least do your research to know how to look for the best ingredients and the top quality ingredients when you're shopping. And then it comes down to making the food, and you want to stick to those guidelines that you're using, but you can find recipes online and you can tweak those to meet your needs. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of recipes online. They actually have dog cookbooks now to make homemade dog food that you can find in your local bookstore or on Amazon. So you find these recipes and you tweak those to meet your needs, and you add the supplements that your dog might need or things like that. So really, homemade dog food is all about the prep work. It's all about that, the consultation that you're going to have with a veterinarian or a canine nutritionist to find your dog's specific nutritional needs. It's about doing the research and buying the right ingredients, the proper ingredients, the most healthy, safe ingredients for your pet. And then it's about taking those ingredients and making them into a recipe that's going to fit your pet's needs. So if he needs a diet with 20% protein, you might need to tweak certain recipes. If he's a puppy and he needs higher amounts of protein, you're gonna have to tweak those recipes to give your dog the nutrition that he needs. And then the last thing that you're gonna wanna think about with homemade dog food is how you're going to store it. Homemade dog food, though, the biggest downside to homemade dog food is that you don't have the preservatives in them like the store brands do, so they don't last very long. When you're talking about storage for homemade dog food, my suggestion to you would be, if you're making a new recipe, make a small quantity, just enough for a couple of days for your dog. And then if he doesn't like it, you're not wasting a lot of dog food. You didn't make this huge batch and now you're having to get rid of all of it. So make a small batch. If your dog likes it, then you can make it in larger batches. And most recipes will yield enough food, depending on your dog's size, of course, and how much you feed him, will yield enough food to feed him for about 5 days. So you might want to cut the recipe in half the first time. Make enough to feed him for just a couple of days. If he likes it, great. If he doesn't, that's okay. Not a big deal. You didn't waste a lot of ingredients making this giant batch. And then if you know that your dog likes it, you can double batches, things like that, make more food in larger quantities. Most recipes are going to be able to keep in your refrigerator in an airtight container for about 5 to 7 days. Usually it's roughly a week. And you also, homemade dog food, you can freeze it and keep it for longer periods of time. So if you want to make a large batch, you want to make sure that you have enough airtight containers for whatever you might be doing. If you're going to make dog food every week and you're only making one batch and all you want to do is make one type of dog food for that week and keep it in one container, that's great. But often what I hear from people making homemade dog food is that they just don't have the time. That's the other big drawback. The preservatives are one, and the time it takes to make it is another drawback. People don't have the time to spend half of a Saturday afternoon prepping dog food for the next month. But or making it, say, daily or every few days. So what you can do to curb that is prep long term. You can make larger batches. You can put enough in the refrigerator for now. Say you use one bigger airtight container and you store your dog's food in it for the next 5 days. Now the other thing that you can do is use airtight containers and put that food in there, stick it in the fridge, and now your food's going to be good for a couple of months instead of just a few days. So that's a huge benefit, but you do have to have the storage for that. You need to have the refrigerator storage, the freezer storage, and of course you need to have plenty of containers to keep your dog food in. The other thing that you want to consider is if you have multiple dogs, like for example, we have the 3 dogs I told you about, the boxer and the chocolate lab are large breeds, and then we have our little beagle. So what I do is I portion out our dog food. For the large breeds, they get 1.5 cups, and for the small breed, she only gets 3/4 of a cup at each meal. So sorry, our large breeds get 1.25 cups and our small breed gets 3/4 of a cup. So I portion those out. I bought small airtight containers, and I can portion those out, and then I don't have to worry about measuring it out every single time. And when I freeze it, I portion it out like that, and then other members of our family can feed if I'm not around or things like that. They know, obviously the larger containers are for the larger dogs and the small containers are for our little Beagle Molly. So you know, you can do that if you want to be organized in that way. Just remember that the more containers that you have, the more you organize and break that food down, the more space you're going to need, because that's going to take a lot more room than just putting it all, you know, putting like say a week's worth of dog food in one container. So think about the storage, think about that before you make your homemade dog food, or you're going to run into a storage problem after you make it. And as I mentioned with the time, you know, one of those time savers is to make large quantities and freeze it and not have to worry about it. You can do crock pot. There are lots of crock pot meals. I've shared some on our website that you can look at, and of course they're all over the internet, and as well they're in those cookbooks that I mentioned about dog food. So you can do crock pot recipes, you can do freezer recipes like that, where you know, you're for example, the crock pot, you throw the ingredients in the morning, put the lid on, set it on low, you can go to work, and when you come home your food's ready, or your dog's food is ready. And then the freezer meals, you know, you might make a large quantity in the crock pot and freeze it, so you really, you know, it's a little bit of prep time, but it's not a lot of time consuming standing over the stove stirring and things like that. So that's something to think about. There are ways to shave some time off of that prep work as well. And if you plan in advance, you know, homemade dog food is all about planning. You're working with your professional in the beginning to plan out the nutrition that your dog needs, and then it's all about planning the ingredients, planning the food, you know, planning the storage and the prep work and things like that. And the more planning that you can do, the easier it's going to make it on yourself. If you have everything planned out, you can knock out a bunch of dog food first thing on a weekend morning and throw it in the freezer, and you're done with it for the next couple of months. So you know, that's definitely something that will save you a little bit of time. And of course, talking about homemade dog food, we need to talk about the cost. As I said, buy the ingredients that fit into your budget, but a lot of people say that homemade dog food is so much more expensive and they can't afford to do that. Buying a top quality commercial food is actually more expensive than making food at home. Of course, those lower quality meals, the lower quality kibble and canned food and things, yes, you can certainly buy it cheaper, but you're also buying a cheaper quality product, a poorer quality product. So if you look at a commercial dog food that's on a comparable level health-wise and safety-wise for your dog, it's actually more expensive to buy those foods commercially than it is to make the foods. Just like with the prep time, and you can do things to save yourself some time, you can do a lot of things to save yourself some money too. If you're a smart shopper and you buy in bulk, that's going to save you some money. If you can buy your ingredients, especially your protein in bulk, you can save. Sometimes I buy from a local butcher shop here, and I can save 50 to 75 cents a pound sometimes by buying in bulk over, you know, just buying a package of meat when I need it here and there. So you can buy in bulk. You can, like I said, you can grow your ingredients yourself if you have a garden. Obviously there's still some money invested in that, and the planting and the time that you spend, but that's going to be a lot cheaper, and you're going to reap a lot more product than you would, you know, going to the store. So you can grow your own ingredients. You can also buy things that are in season. Go to the farmer's market. If a recipe calls for, say, blueberries, but I'm from Maine, where we're a blueberry harvesting state. That's a big crop here. In the summertime, you can buy local fresh blueberries. Chloe, come here. You can buy, sorry about that, local fresh blueberries fairly cheap in the summertime, but in the wintertime they're very hard to find fresh, and they're very expensive if you do find them fresh. So, you know, if I'm making a recipe that calls for blueberries in the wintertime, I'm going to maybe substitute that for apples or something else that I can find that's cheaper, and you can do that. Chloe, come here. Same thing with vegetables. You know, if green beans are really expensive this week, or say you find a deal on peas over green beans, you know, that's something that can help a lot. Hold on. Sorry about that. just one of the many joys of pet ownership. You never know when they're going to bark at one of your lawn decorations is what they're just barking at. We have things decorated for Halloween at our house right now, and they were barking at lawn decorations. So anyway, you know, talking about the ingredients and saving yourself a little bit of money. Again, if something's in season, it might be a little bit cheaper, or there might be a sale on something. So you can plan your dog food meals around those. Substitutions are really easy to do in dog food. If you're making a recipe that calls for chicken, 9 times out of 10 you can substitute beef, and it's no different. Same thing with vegetables and fruits. A lot of times a recipe will call for, say, broccoli, cauliflower, and green beans. You can substitute those easily for peas or other vegetables or fruits that are healthy for dogs. You can throw some apples in there. You can throw some squash is great for dogs, so you can substitute that, pumpkin, anything like that. You can kind of interchange those, and you can do it, don't buy blueberries if they're, $6 a pint right now, when you could easily substitute for something else that's a lot cheaper. Just make sure that you know for sure if those ingredients are healthy for dogs, because like I mentioned, some fruits and vegetables aren't. So there are ways to do it and save yourself the time, and there are ways to do it and save yourself the money. You can certainly make homemade dog food on a budget. And like I said, first step though, definitely work with a professional to find out what your dog's individual needs are, and then go from there. I would be happy to answer any questions for you if you are thinking about making your own homemade dog food or anything like that. You have some questions. If you're looking for specific types of recipes, say your dog's diabetic or gluten-free, if you want some that are high in protein or things like that, reach out to me. My email is samantha@topdogtips.com, and I would be happy to help out with that and get some videos up for you guys. Of course, you can reach out to us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram, Pinterest. We are all over social media. And of course, on our YouTube channel, that might be how you're watching this right now. Subscribe to that, and you can check out some more great videos. I do how-tos, product reviews. Of course, I share recipes every week, so you will be the first to know when those are posted. If you guys have any other questions or anything that I can help you with, make sure to reach out. I love hearing from you guys, and I feel like it's one of my responsibilities working for Top Dog Tips to put things out here that you guys want as the viewers and the readers. So make sure you throw out some suggestions if you have any, and I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make homemade dog food. I will be back a little bit later on this week with another video on how to make homemade dog treats. So I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.